What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Surfing the Stream, where every week we're on a quest to find out what is the greatest movie of all time. Today, I am taking a look at Abigail, a horror comedy that just came out recently. It was a movie that was not on my radar for 2024. I kind of just chalked it up as a throwaway horror movie that it was basically just trash, but after a bunch of people started reviewing it and telling me, no, dude, you need to watch this, I was like, all right, I'll check it out. Going into it, I didn't really have any expectations because, one, I didn't know anything about it other than that it was a vampire movie and that it did have a lot of comedy in it. And for those people that don't know me, I'm not a huge fan of comedy in my horror. I'm here to get scared. I'm not here to laugh with these movies, right? But when I do love a comedic horror movie, I usually really fucking love them, okay? This is kind of in the middle. I really enjoyed Abigail, okay? This movie was about a group of criminals. They kidnap this ballerina daughter of like this really powerful figure in the world, and they take her to like this isolated mansion, and then essentially they start getting picked off one by one, and then they realize that the ballerina girl is not who she says she is. Okay, there's more than meets the eye with this little girl, and then in comes the vampire story. And I gotta say, going into this movie, not watching any of the trailers, not reading a synopsis or spoiler reviews or anything like that, just knowing that it is a vampire movie, I think really benefited me with this movie, especially the fact that I'm not a huge fan of comedic horror, so I didn't see all those comedic beats in the trailers. So I would recommend going into this as blindly as you can, but I would recommend going and checking this out. I think this is a pretty good watch, honestly, and it's a lot of fun. Surprisingly, a lot of what happens in this movie works for me, and from the comedic beats, which I'm not gonna sit here and say that I laughed my ass off several times, but it got a few chuckles out of me, and for the most part, I loved that tone with the movie. I think it really benefits this specific movie in general. Like if they went super serious, we're taking ourselves super serious and we're not going to laugh at all, and we're here to just scare the shit out of you and just kill people and be blood and guts and shit like that, then by all means, I don't think that works. But the fact that they were able to insert these comedic beats and they were actually able to craft, and this was the biggest surprise to me, they were able to craft multiple characters that you can discern from each other, okay? They're not all copycats. They're not all throwaway characters. No, they all have their own personalities. And for the most part, like, even though they're shitbags in the story and they're the bad guys, you get attached to them. You start to kind of feel for them, and you start to kind of root for the bad guys and all their situations that they get put in. And the one thing that this movie does really well is, again, builds those characters up so they have those comedic beats, and they just hit so much better when you get attached to these characters. Again, I think that's the biggest thing that is going for this movie, is the fact that they were able to craft individual characters with their own personalities. And usually in movies like this, you might remember one or two characters, right? But outside of that, you don't know who any of these characters are. You don't really give a shit who they are. You're just ready for them to die, right? No, like every single one of them has their moment to shine in this movie. And in fact, there's even some heartfelt moments in this movie, which I was not expecting. But to be completely fair, to kind of play devil's advocate here, I do think that some of those character moments, those slower moments, really does drag down the pacing of the movie. And here comes the two problems that I have with Abigail. One is the pacing. This movie is probably, it's an hour and 49 minutes. It's probably about 15 minutes too long. 10 to 15, somewhere around there. They need to trim the fat a little bit. Like we do get some great character moments in this movie, surprisingly. Okay, surprising. I can't believe I was saying this about a movie called Abigail, and it deals with vampires and shit like that, right? But there are some heartfelt moments, and yeah, they just drags on a little too long. At about an hour and 25, 30 minutes, I'm like, God damn, how long do I fucking have left in this movie? And that's kind of, it's just the third act. The last third of the movie is the biggest issue of the entire film for me. I would say if you judge this movie based off of the first 90% of it, you're looking at 3.5, 4 stars. Easy. But the pacing really drags it down at the back end of the movie. And then we also have some tone issues with the back end of the movie. It's almost kind of like it doesn't know when it wants to end. It feels like there's 5 different endings at the very end. Like 1 second it feels like it's a comedic horror movie through and through up until the last third of the movie, where it turns into almost kind of like an action movie. It's kind of, I'm kind of exaggerating that a little bit, but it turns into more action oriented tone rather than the comedic tone that it had for the first 2/3 of the movie. And I think that's the biggest issue. And it just completely shifts tone for that back end of the movie. And to me, that's where the movie really falls apart, is the third act. Despite the fact that I think it's probably about 15 minutes too long, and with the tone issues that it has towards the end of the movie, I still think this is a great watch, guys. I think you should, right now, or whenever you get a chance, go and check this out. Rent it. Let's talk about money. Okay, let's talk about money. If you can rent this or buy it under $10, I would check it out. Like this does the entertainment factor more so than the horror elements. Like I don't ever feel like, I feel like there's more comedy in the movie rather than there is horror. It's bloody as hell. It's bloody as hell though. Like despite the fact that it's not scary, there's so much blood and guts in this movie. It's not even funny. But yeah, guys, go and check out Abigail. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will catch y'all next time on another episode. Laters.